Welcome to the Partnernomics Show, where industry thought leaders discuss the hottest topics in partnerships, ecosystems, and innovation. The Partnernomics Show is brought to you by IOLite Solutions, a product incubator specific to Salesforce. Now here's the host of the Partnernomics Show, Mark Brigman.
Welcome back to another episode of the Partnernomics Show. I'm super excited about today's episode. We are joined by Miss Sarah Collins. Sarah is the president of Ad Astra, and we recently had the opportunity to take Sarah and her team through our team boot camp to go through the Partnernomics methodology, and it was super cool to see this. But Sarah, appreciate you joining us today. Look forward to this conversation. How are things going?
They're going great. Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm excited to share what I've learned and talk a little bit about my experiences.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, I think there's a lot of organizations that are probably where Ad Astra is. We can talk about Ad Astra in a second to get some background, but one of the reasons I'm so excited is because I think a lot of companies are, let's say, 10, 15, 20 years old, and they're really learning, getting that painful experience of recent years, learning that the old traditional direct only sales approach is becoming less and less effective by the day. And so there's more organizations that are doing this partnering route, wanting to figure out how to do it better. And I think that's exactly where Ad Astra is. Sarah, for those that might not be familiar with Ad Astra as a company, would you mind just taking a couple minutes and share about the company and its history?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. So we are a privately held company that has been in business for 28 years, gone through many cycles of the life cycle map. As a business, we do all of our development and innovation and support sales. Everything has always been in-house and has been a very direct model. We work in the higher education tech space. So this is quite a unique space to operate in. It's very niche, very specific. Ed tech, however, over the last 5-8 years has had quite a bit of outside investment money brought in to fund basically growth and startups within the ed tech space, which has really changed the dynamics of the market, which has forced some of us who are these traditional companies, organizations, tech companies that have just evolved with technology and moved towards the SaaS model. It's forced us to change the way we think about how we capture market, because it's really has been quite disruptive in probably a very positive way, but it has forced change. Ad Astra has about 130 employees. We're based in the Kansas City area. We sell exclusively into higher education institutions. Currently, we partner with about 560 colleges and universities in North America. And another very unique thing is our buyer. A lot of people feel like tech companies would be purchased by chief technology officers, chief information officers, et cetera. Our buyer is the provost of a university or the registrar of a university. So you're also dealing with some uniqueness in that area of who's actually making your procurement decisions, which does significantly increase the cycle time for sales for us.
Sarah, what are some of the more specific solutions that you guys provide? Is it, so I heard you mention SaaS, so there's softwares, there are also a services component, and what specifically does it help these colleges and universities do?
Excellent. At the end of the day, it helps them create a course schedule that is aligned with what students need to take when they're available to take them. And it resources that course schedule by identifying the faculty it can teach, the space, the time that's available, what modality you can roll it out in. So at a university, as you can imagine, that's a very complex, they call it an MP complete optimization problem. And so we're in the business of having analytics optimization algorithms as well as managing work at a college or university. If you've attended, you know that there are hundreds and hundreds of degree programs that you can enroll in, and all of that has to be coordinated across many departments who oversee that. So it's a very complex, multifaceted problem, and the software helps scale a solution to the problem and provide analytics, but we do also have a consulting and services arm. A lot of implementation services are required, integration services, as well as consulting of just what is the strategy behind that? How do we roll state initiatives and other strategic elements into the design of the software to be able to optimize to those strategies?
So we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, you mentioned a company that's 28 years old. There's certainly lots of different evolutions and that companies go through to reinvent itself or to make these pivots to maximize growth opportunities in front of them. But certainly with AI, new technologies, other software in the space, as you mentioned, in fairly recent years when money used to be basically free to borrow, certainly
Right.
hasn't been in the last year and a half, but with cheap money, lots of new technology providers coming into the space. Talk to us a little bit about the evolution that you guys have gone through in Ad Astra, or just what you've seen from a market perspective that now is pointing towards partnerships as
Sure.
being an opportunity.
Sure. I think we started to see the writing on the wall, frankly, pre-COVID, probably 2018, 2019 is when we started to see that this is getting harder, right? This is the direct sales model is getting harder. We are not acquiring new clients at the rate that we used to. And we need to do something about that. We took a multifaceted approach and it was a bit phased, but whenever you're trying to solve a big complex problem like that, you start to peel back the layers and say, okay, we know this is an issue. We know the direct sales is an issue. So let's think about our own internal go-to-market strategy. How do we optimize revenue through sorry, let me back up a second here. How do we optimize new client acquisition through a more efficient revenue organization and model? So we just looked at our own direct sales and how do we optimize that? The second thing that we looked at was really is what other opportunity is there to open up new revenue streams, essentially. And that's how we're looking at. Of course, we can build product and we're a product company, but that takes time. And to take that to market is a lot of work and it's a lot of investment. So when we started looking at how do we open up new revenue streams, we decided, okay, partnership is probably the way that we need to do that. Now, working with Partnernomics, we were able to identify a framework in which we could start to get our minds around what this meant. And that was extremely helpful. However, we had to take that framework and we did have to customize it a bit to our unique landscape, the ecosystem that we live in for partnering. So we did multiple things, Mark. We looked at some internal restructuring to support these initiatives. We felt like that was extremely important. My 25 years of experience with the company is primarily market facing and over revenue. So it seemed logical that I would take on the role of identifying our partner strategies and who in the market we would want to align with and how we would want to do that. And in addition, in parallel, we looked at implementing a revenue ops model and hiring a CRO and really going all in on aligning operations, marketing, client success, and sales, hoping to also just gain some efficiencies on the direct sales model because we knew that wasn't going away for us. For the last year, I've had the pleasure, and it truly has been a pleasure, of working on figuring out how this works for our almost 30-year-old company, that we need to increase our year-over-year growth by close to 10%. And so that's not insignificant. And sitting in the seat that I have been as a revenue leader, thinking about that from just a direct sales strategy is daunting. It feels impossible, to be quite honest with you. So that's when we started engaging Partnernomics to say, okay, there's got to be some basic building blocks that I don't need to go figure out and relearn on my own. And the curriculum and the framework really gave us those to think about. So that's really where we are a year later. I'm going to pause and let you ask another question to take me in the right direction.
So one of the tools that we use, one of the first things that we went through was the organizational partnering plan, the OPP. And so that's a 12 component tool that allows, I say forces, and I say that in a great way, right? It just forces a lot of conversations inside of organizations to really define, what does partnering mean for our organization? What are the types of partnerships we want to have? What are the types of ideal partners to participate in these different programs? As a company, what do we look like? What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What's some value that we can provide to partners? What's obviously value that we want from partners? What is this new world going to require of us in resources? And then certainly picking goals. What's
Right.
the outcomes that we want out of this? Can you talk a little bit about some of the boardroom conversations that you were having with the executive team to go through this process and some value that came of that?
Yeah, absolutely. An extremely useful exercise. Took about twice the amount of time I thought it would, to be honest with you,
What did it
because
take? Okay, that'd be great to know.
so that's a great question. The cadence for talking about this particular topic was once a month in an executive team meeting. Okay. So I got airtime on this particular topic once a month. And I want to say we started it in late 23, probably the October, November timeframe. And probably March, April of this year got to a point where I felt like we were aligned on a strategy. I will say that one of the things that, because I was spending a lot of mind share on the topic myself personally, I was biting off a lot at one time, right? Because I'm thinking, oh, the possibilities, and it's growing and growing in my mind. And I was getting a lot of feedback to rein that in and start very focused. But let me tell you a little bit about the OPP process that I really appreciated, because it created a way, a space, a framework to have a good dialogue that all these things could come up and we would all be on the same page. And we were talking about things before they became a problem or before they became something that wasn't clear or confusing to the organization. And I think that's probably the biggest benefit of them. When we had gone through many SWATs as an executive team on our business over the years, right? The only difference here is this was in particular context, right? And the context was our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, not just in the market, but related specifically to partnering. And we did do a market SWOT as well. And those two things did bleed together a little bit. And that was important because as we're thinking about partnerships and the type of partnerships, you have to know what your market, what's going on in your market, right? So the SWOT in and of itself was good. It brought out some needed, it required people to state some bias and opinions that I think were necessary to get on the table, specifically those that have been in the business for a long time who believe that we do it all. We're the best. Why would we partner with anybody? Why would we want somebody? A big threat is what if somebody else misrepresents us? Nobody else can do it the way we can. And so getting past some of those bias and some of those beliefs and having those conversations was quite useful, because at the end of the day, we needed to have alignment on what we were going to try to accomplish with this program, right? I'm calling it a program just to give it a word and we're all on the same page. But with our partnership strategy, what are we trying to accomplish? Overall, we're trying to accomplish growth, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to diversify and increase our growth opportunities. And so ultimately, it comes back to revenue. The second is we see the market beginning to merge. We see acquisitions taking place. We see other alignments going on where people are trying to assemble the groups of functionality in the ed tech space so that they are the one size fits all. So this belief that, oh no, we do what we do and we stay in our swim lane was starting to get a little bit turbulent, because people weren't staying in their own swim lanes anymore. They were coming into the other lanes to try to compete. And so we also needed to get creative about how to expand our capabilities through partnerships, not just our revenue and our growth functions. So we aligned at the end of the day on that. And then I also quickly learned we didn't have a culture of partnering. That wasn't in our culture. We have a build culture. We still do, I would say. And so this is something I have to continue to work on, is that a partner culture is just as good of a strategy. And then I learned that through the OPP process, as we were starting to define all of these things, that the word partner doesn't mean the same to everybody either. So it's just like anything you do in business or in leadership, you learn that you need to take the time to create alignment and to create environment and culture that's going to be able to support an initiative that's going to last, that's going to sustain. And for that reason, I've had to take this so much slower because I do want this to be sustainable. And I do see this as a long-term revenue strategy that we can continue to and grow and invest in. Where I'll say we still work on getting alignment and agreement is the investment side of that. That's hard. Just like anything in business, you want to show returns along the way, right? To get buy-in, to create a business case, to make more investments. And that's, I would say, where we are at this point. But back to my comment about partner doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. I finally realized quickly, much like the Partnernomics framework breaks this down, right? You have channel partners, you have strategic partners, you have platform partners, and roughly we fit into all of those categories, and that wasn't hard. I changed a few words so that the terminology resonated with the way we talk in our industry and in our company, just to clarify that. And we've always had not only platform partners, but integration partners. So I put them in that category where just it was the price of being able to play was to be able to interface with other systems. And it also made you sticky because it was harder to leave if you were interfaced into multiple systems within an ecosystem at a university. But we really didn't have go-to-market partnerships. And the strategic partnerships we had, which is the other category that I laid out there, were not very formalized. They were very informal. And so we really had to work on creating clarity about what the strategy was with those different types of partnerships and what we were trying to accomplish.
So one of the things that we try to have clients get out of going through the organizational partnering plan process is clarity, focus, and alignment. And as you know, we were chatting before we hit record, I think I heard you say each of those different words, which is awesome. But certainly just the alignment inside of the organization. You also mentioned about culture, and we talk about partnering being a culture.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the organizations that we see and the clients that we see whenever they're doing direct sales, that's a very independent culture. Us
Yes.
versus the world, right? Us in
Yes.
the foxhole, we can do it. It's all about us. We'll take the weight on our shoulders.
Yes.
But whenever companies decide to do this partnering thing, it's moving from independent to dependent or interdependent, which is scary
Yes.
for a lot of organizations. And it sounds at Astra, you certainly feel that as well. And just having those conversations to understand, get people comfortable and to define what that even means as an organization.
Oh, 100%. You summed that up exactly correct. And I would imagine, again, think about our size and our age, and we very much have been an independent firm. And I still think that trickles down and throughout the organization in a lot of ways. Some of the specific challenges that we had to work through are we've really never done a true go-to-market partnership with somebody, right? Where we have, and I had to break that down, right? So we can do some co-marketing, we can do some co-selling. We've never done a channel sell. We've never done where we're actually fully integrated and it's a bundle sale for a partner or on our behalf of a partner. And so all of those things were really very new. So we had to walk into it a little slowly. We started with, okay, let's take strategic, we have our integrations. Those are solid and we need to keep doing that, and we can put a revenue model around that. And that's one of the first things we did. That was the least controversial, a revenue model around our integration partnerships. Not a problem. We had some licensing that we put out there. We have some referral structures around that, and that works. The second is we came to these strategic partnerships and we said, okay, well, what does go-to-market mean? We're not sure we want somebody reselling us. We're not sure that we want to resell other products. What does go-to-market look like? We said, okay, let's just start with a strategic marketing partner. Let's start to develop the market and seed the market with why these two solutions are better together, and started down the marketing route. Then we started to bring that into the sales culture of how do we start to do some more co-selling. And now we're just to the point where we're really like, okay, it's time to start thinking about a bigger go-to-market strategy with these partnerships, which really gets to ultimately some of the stuff that you're teaching in your program, what does it look like to develop teams that really support channel sales or support other types of go-to-market strategies with other companies, because you do have to have support for that. And you do have to have a partner on the other side that is also putting the same investment in their culture and in their teams to support the partnership. That became apparent quickly as I worked with a few companies who they were very motivated to work with us when we did our SWOT. What does Ad Astra bring to the table? Ad Astra brings over 550 colleges and universities to the table. Ad Astra brings almost 30 years of experience and expertise with a great reputation. So Ad Astra brings some really strong things to the table. But so people want to be with us, but we need to know what investment and how committed they are on their end to support our needs. And that was really a good exercise. And I had a couple of fails there, that the language was there. Yes, we want to do it, but at the end of the day, the resourcing wasn't there. And so we really could never move from this idea of doing a couple of marketing activities to really getting this into our sales culture, to getting this into our product and our go-to-market culture and strategy.
Well, so a lot of companies, I'd say all companies that are at least a few years old, certainly those with 28 years of experience like Ad Astra has, every organization has partnerships. But I'd like to have you unpack a little bit. What does it mean to have some partnerships that are out there informal, but then the necessity and just the strategy to more formalize that and the value that it will bring for the organization to go from informal, yeah, we're doing partnerships, but to truly put it into a framework and make it a go-to-market motion?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can't go back to enough of the partner on the other side. One organization that we've informally partnered with for years. It makes a lot of sense for us to refer each other, talk to each other, all very informal, no structure around that at all, but have always been friendlies. And there's their founder and CEO who is looking for his next phase of this business is suddenly very motivated to think about how to leverage partnerships to grow. And so I will say just the position that he was sitting in at this point in time made it very easy for us to formalize. So we're having a conversation like you and I are having today, talking about how in our 20, 30 years experience in this market, partnerships have always been a very squishy thing and they can be really frustrating. We're all nice to each other. Got it. But how can we really tangibly measure the value of them and what is really the structure and expectations? We hadn't really in our worlds of ed tech seen that done well. And as a matter of fact, the pattern was continuing to build or to buy. It wasn't to partner, and lots of acquisitions going on. He was on the same page and he said, I put together a partnership agreement, a legal contract. And it felt like that was the first place to start for me, is what he told me. And I said, funny enough, you say that. I am on the same page. I think we have to agree on terms and we have to take this seriously and we have to first formalize what it is and what our expectations are of each other. So we went through that exercise. And then we went through the exercise of kind of building the strategy. We both, having been in very long-term businesses that are independently held and built up by their founders, with their founders still operating them, that was on both sides of the partnership. We couldn't get our heads around just diving straight into a channel sale agreement or a platform play. We wanted to get to know each other and step into that and test the waters. And so we really did start with more of how do we tell our story? Why is it better together? How do we do the marketing around that? And then how do we start to leverage some sales around that? And then let's start thinking about how we might be able to break up parts of our product for channel sales, our products for channel sales where that makes sense. And so we're in the part of it now where we have a really good story for the market. We have some marketing backbone behind it, and we've put some investment in that. And the market is starting to respond that it makes sense. So now we're starting to think about, could we parse out pieces of our product that would make a lot of sense to package with your product, et cetera, and build those solutions. And again, I think the success is we were both on the same page with wanting to have that kind of structure and invest in the partnership.
Sir, I think this is an initiative that you guys have been in the middle of, or certainly thinking about for well over a year now. What kind of advice would you give to executives that are in your seat, right? They're in a mature company. They're seeing that it's becoming more and more challenging to execute this direct only go-to-market motion. So they're looking to leverage partnerships. They have a mature company, they have a mature culture, but it's probably a different culture than what partnering needs. What advice would you give to an executive that's getting ready to step down the path that you've been on the last year?
Oh, yeah, I think I laid it out mostly in my story, but first you have to make a case. That's first, right? And we had to make a case and get real with it that we were not going to see the kind of growth we wanted for the direct sales strategy that we had been executing on for the last 25 years. It just wasn't there. We could make a spreadsheet show us 20% growth year over year on top of what we have today that made it look real good. But the reality is we're falling well short of that. And so we had to come to terms with the fact that we can't bring new product to market fast enough to get to where we want to be. And the market is changing on us. Dramatic strategies aren't enough standing alone. So we just had to make a case. And once we got there, we said, okay, we're all in agreement. We need to look for other things. Now, what does it look like to partner? Take a lot of time and space to create that clarity, that alignment, and that culture. It's really a necessary foundation. And even I feel like I had to bootstrap it. I feel like I was bootstrapping something inside of a bootstrapped company. That is literally how I felt. I'm doing a lot of the work myself. I'm leaning on peers and I'm leaning on experts from Partnernomics and I'm leaning on coaches and I'm leaning on all these different people to help me figure out the best way to do this and to test this. But ultimately, it was really necessary to build that space. And I think internally, what I'm remembering is just like everything else, even throughout the organization, it's really important for me to provide regular communication and updates on what I am doing around partners. The whole business needs to know. It's not just my executive team. I am going into my sales team and I'm providing updates once a month on, even if there isn't, of course, they're involved if we're in a go-to-market or co-sales activity with a partner. But outside of that, what's coming down the pike? How am I thinking about this? What are we doing? And providing them data and feedback. I will tell you, the salespeople were they were just as skeptical and on guard as some of the executive team, because they thought, get out of my kitchen, right? Who's going to be taking my money? And so that is another really big piece of advice, is take the time to think about your sales structures, your sales compensation plans, and how this will fit into that so that you have buy-in and you have synergy and you don't create friction there that isn't needed. And that's something else that I did learn. I had to backstep a little bit on that and get them more on board than I was expecting. And then I've these regular cadence of communication and conversation. And now it's to the point where they bring me ideas forward, and that's great. So just taking the time to do that, we still have a ton of work to scale. We do not have this figured out yet, but we have, I think, a foundation that we can build on with a structure and some language that's consistent, that we can start to resource and build out one partnership at a time. And I would just take the time to do that.
Awesome. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. It's
Yes,
been awesome working with you, and thank you for sharing the story and sharing your insights with other partnering professionals and other executives.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for inviting me. And I encourage everybody to look at this as a critical business strategy at this point in time. And I will tell you, having a tangible framework with language around it is extremely useful in being able to sell this at the organizations you're in. So I appreciate you allowing me to come and share my experience.
Thank you so much, Miss Sarah.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode of the Partnernomics Show. Don't forget to subscribe to get the newest episodes at thepartnernomicshow.com. Special thanks to our sponsors, Iolite. To learn more about Iolite, visit iolitepro.com. And Partnernomics, the science of partnering. To learn more about the suite of Partnernomics courses, coaching programs, and consulting services, visit partnernomics.com. See you on the next episode.